Welcome back to the Full Stack Web Development Series. In this session, we're picking up right where we left off. We've already built out the ordering flow, integrated Culti payment, and allowed users to place orders. Now we're going to focus on what happens after an order is placed, tracking order status, displaying payment details, and giving the admin panel the tools it needs to manage everything properly. Let's dive in. So let's quickly recap where we are. In the last class, on Friday, we completed the order placement flow. The user placed an order and paid through Culti. That payment went through successfully. Now, the question is, what happens next? The user should be able to see their order history, check the status of their order, and eventually leave a review. That's exactly what we're building today. When we go into the order section and click View Details on an order, we can see the payment status is showing as completed. Great, the payment went through. But here's the problem. The order status itself is missing from the view. Right now, we can see the payment status, but there's no field showing the actual order status. Things like whether the order is pending, being processed, or has been delivered. These are two separate pieces of information, and both need to be displayed clearly. This is a really important distinction to understand. Payment status and order status are two completely separate things. Payment status tells us whether the customer has paid. It can be completed, pending, or failed. Order status, on the other hand, tells us where the order is in the fulfillment process. It can be pending, processing, or delivered. A payment can be completed while the order is still in a pending state, waiting for the shop to process it. Both fields need to exist and be tracked independently in our system. For payment status, we have exactly three possible values: completed, pending, and failed. Completed means the user has successfully paid through Culti. Pending means the payment hasn't gone through yet, maybe they started the checkout but didn't finish. And failed means the payment attempt was made but something went wrong. These three states cover every scenario a payment can be in. For order status, we also have three values: pending, processing, and delivered. Pending is the default. When an order is first placed, it sits in pending until the shop owner takes action. Processing means the shop has acknowledged the order and is preparing it. Delivered means the order has reached the customer. One very important thing to note here, these values are case sensitive. If your database has pending in lowercase and your code checks for pending with a capital P, it won't match. Always make sure your enum values use consistent casing. In this case, all lowercase. You might wonder, what about rejected orders? In this system, we're keeping things simple. There's no rejected or failed order status. The reason is that the display logic uses an else branch as a fallback, which means any unrecognized status will just show as processing. Since we don't have a rejected state in our workflow, we don't need to handle it. This is a deliberate design simplification. Fewer states means simpler logic and less room for bugs. When we look at the order history page, we can see that all current orders are showing a status of pending, which makes sense because no shop owner has processed them yet. The payment status for some orders is completed, meaning those customers have paid, while others are still pending. The detailed payment information is available when the user clicks View Details, which acts like a receipt. It clearly shows the payment status, amount, and other transaction details. That View Detail page essentially serves as the user's payment receipt. The View Details page is essentially the customer's digital receipt. It clearly shows the payment status, completed, pending, or failed, along with the order details, items, and total amount. Because this information is already clearly labeled inside the View Details page, we don't necessarily need to duplicate the payment status in the main order list. The key insight here is that the View Details page gives the customer everything they need to confirm their payment and order. Now let's talk about the admin side. We're using Filament as our admin panel framework, and we've already built the products resource for the shop. Now we need to do the same for orders. We need a way for the shop owner to see all incoming orders and manage them. To create this, we run the Filament make resource command with the order model and the generate flag. This automatically scaffolds a full CRUD interface for orders inside the admin panel. Here's a critical problem we need to solve. Because there's only one database shared across all shops, when we first generate the orders resource, the admin panel will show every single order from every shop, not just the orders for the shop that's currently logged in. This is the exact same problem we ran into with products earlier. A shop owner should only be able to see their own shop's orders, not orders from other shops. We need to filter the query. The fix is straightforward. We add a where clause to filter orders by the current shop's ID. We take the same filtering logic we used in the products resource and apply it to the orders resource. This ensures that when a shop owner logs into the admin panel, they only see orders that belong to their shop.
We also added default sort so that the most recent orders appear at the top of the list. This is a much better user experience for a shop owner who wants to see their latest orders first. When we add the filtering logic, we need to make sure the required classes are imported at the top of the file. We need the order model, the filament facade to get the current panel context, and the builder class for the query. If your IDE doesn't auto-import these, you can click on the unresolved class name and use the Import Class option to select the correct namespace. Getting these imports right is essential. Without them, the code will throw errors, even if the logic itself is correct. Now, let's customize what columns appear in the orders table in the admin panel. Instead of showing a raw user ID number, which is meaningless to a shop owner, we use dot notation to traverse the relationship and show the user's actual name. So instead of user ID, we write user.name, and filament will automatically follow the relationship and display the customer's name. We also show order status, payment status, and total amount. We don't need to show the shop ID column because we're already filtering by shop. Every order in this list belongs to the current shop by definition. A small but important UX detail. We should add an icon to the orders resource so it's easily recognizable in the admin sidebar. Filament uses hero icons, so we can set the navigation icon to something like hero icon O bell alert, which gives us a bell with an alert indicator. Very appropriate for incoming orders. Having distinct icons for each resource in the sidebar makes the admin panel much easier to navigate, especially when there are many resources. Let's take stock of what we've built so far in this session. We've clarified the difference between payment status and order status, defined the valid values for each, added the order status display to the order history page, built the orders resource in the Filament admin panel, fixed the critical bug where all shops could see all orders, and customized the table to show meaningful information like the customer's name. Coming up next, we'll continue building on this foundation, adding the ability for users to leave reviews and giving shop owners the ability to take action on orders. So, picking up from where we left off, the user table that's been built so far is intentionally incomplete. It was set up just to give a surface-level understanding of how users are structured. In a real application, you'd add many more columns, things like phone number, contact number, address, and so on. Right now, the table has the user's name and the user's email. The email field is made searchable rather than sortable because it helps identify which record belongs to which user. Phone number isn't in the database yet. Ideally, it would be, but since it's not there, email serves as the identifier for now. Now, let's talk about order status management. There are 3 status values available: pending, processing, and delivered. Right now, an order starts in pending, and the admin manually moves it through the stages. This is done using a select column. Instead of a plain text field, a drop-down style select column is used so the admin can pick the correct status right from the table. Payment status, on the other hand, is not manually changed. It updates automatically when the customer actually pays. Since cash on delivery hasn't been implemented in the system, there's no need for the admin to ever touch the payment status field manually. Instead of using a plain text column for the order status, a select column is used. This is a much better approach because it restricts the values to only the valid options, pending, processing, and delivered, and lets the admin change the status with a simple click right inside the table. No free text typing, no risk of typos. The admin just picks the right value from the dropdown and it updates immediately. This is a key UI decision that makes the admin panel much more usable. One nice feature that can be added here is sending an email to the customer whenever the order status changes. For example, when the admin moves an order from pending to processing, the system can automatically fire off an email to let the customer know. This is something that's already been covered earlier in the course. The code for sending mail on a status change exists in the edit page section. It's optional, but it's a great touch for a real e-commerce application. Now, the admin also needs to be able to view the full receipt or details of a specific order. To do this, a new action button called Details is added to the orders table. This is a filament action created using the make method. When the admin clicks this button, they get redirected to a separate page that shows all the items in that order. The key variable here is $record. This represents the single row of data from the table, the specific order the admin clicked on. That record gets passed along to the next page. Here's how the redirect works. The action uses a URL function, an anonymous function that receives the $record variable, which is the current order row. Inside that function, a named route called doken.order.details is called, and the record is passed as a parameter. The third part, passing true, tells the system to open this link in a new browser tab. If you leave out the true, it opens in the same tab. This is a clean way to send the admin to a dedicated order detail page without losing their place in the orders list. To make the redirect work, a new route needs to be created. The route is named doken.order.details, exactly matching the name used in the action. It accepts the record as a URL parameter, which will be the order ID. Instead of creating a brand new controller, this route is pointed to the existing order controller, since there's already an order controller in place. The route is added to the web routes file and grouped under the Doken middleware, so only authenticated Doken users can access it. Inside the order controller, a new public function called Doken order is created. It receives the $record parameter, the order that was passed from the route. The method then uses order::find to retrieve the full order details from the database. Finally, it returns a blade view located in the front-end Doken folder, passing the order data using compact. This is a straightforward controller method. Receive the record, find it in the database, and send it to the view. The blade view for the order detail page needs to be built from scratch. It can't reuse the filament admin layout, because that layout is specific to the admin panel. It won't work on a front-end route. So a fresh boilerplate is created. The page shows the order ID, customer name and email, a table of order items with product name, quantity, and price, and the total amount. There are also two buttons, one to download the receipt as a PDF and one to go back to the dashboard. The view file is placed in the resources/views/frontend/Doken folder. The AI-generated code for the order detail page included a PDF download feature using a package called berryvdh/Laravel DOM PDF. This is actually a very commonly used Laravel package for generating PDFs, and it's one that's been used before in this project. Laravel auto-discovers it, so no manual registration in the service provider is needed. However, if the package isn't installed yet, you'll get an import class error. The fix is simple. Just run composer require berryvdh/Laravel DOM PDF in your terminal, and the PDF facade becomes available immediately. One error that came up when testing the order detail page was a column not found error related to order items. The AI-generated code used camel case, order items, but the actual relationship defined in the model uses snake case, or just items. This is a classic naming mismatch. The fix is to use Ctrl+F to find all instances of the wrong name and replace them with the correct one. In this case, items was the correct relationship name. Always double-check that the relationship names in your generated code match what's actually defined in your Eloquent models. Another error that appeared was a view not found error when trying to generate the PDF. The AI-generated code was looking for a view inside a PDF folder, but the actual blade file is located in the front-end/Doken directory. The fix is straightforward. Update the view path in the PDF generation code to point to the correct location. This is a common issue when using AI-generated code. The folder structure it assumes may not match your actual project structure. Always verify the path before running. After fixing the errors, the order detail page works correctly. Clicking the Details button in the Orders table opens a new browser tab showing the full order receipt, the order ID, customer information, the list of items ordered, and the total amount. The Print Receipt button renders the page in a print-friendly format. The Back to Dashboard button takes the admin back to the Doken dashboard. This gives the shop owner a complete view of each order, which is exactly what's needed for managing a store. One small issue that came up was the Back to Dashboard link not working. It was just spinning without redirecting. This happened because the route name used in the link didn't exactly match the route name defined in the routes file. The fix is to check the web routes file, find the correct name for the Doken dashboard route, and use that exact name in the link. This is a good reminder of why named routes are so useful, but they only work if the names match perfectly on both ends. Now that the order detail and receipt page is working, the next logical step is adding a review feature. The idea is that once an order is marked as delivered, the customer should be able to go back and leave a review for the products they received. This feature doesn't exist yet in the system, but it's the natural next thing to build. Tying reviews to delivered orders makes sense from a business logic perspective. You don't want customers reviewing products they haven't actually received yet. That's where the project is headed next. Picking up right where we left off, the AI assistant generated two routes for the review system, one for storing a review and one for checking whether a review already exists. These routes point to a review controller, which was scaffolded inside the front-end folder. The controller was initially commented out to avoid errors during setup, then uncommented once the file was ready and imported properly. Inside the review controller, there are two core functions, store and check. The store function is responsible for saving a new review to the database, while the check function verifies whether the current user has already submitted a review for a given product. The order model is imported at the top because the review logic needs to reference order data to validate whether a purchase actually happened before allowing a review. At this stage, the review API is purely backend. It returns a JSON response and has no direct connection to the front end yet. This is exactly the same pattern used when building other APIs in this project. The reason for returning data in this JSON format is to enable live, real-time interaction on the front end using JavaScript, so the page doesn't need to do a full refresh every time a review is submitted or loaded. Let's be clear about the database relationships here. The review table has two direct relationships, one with the product table via product ID and one with the user table via user ID. Importantly, there is no direct relationship between review and order. Reviews are given for a product by a user, not directly tied to a specific order record. This distinction matters when setting up Eloquent model relationships. The AI assistant suggested using a has-many-through relationship, linking order through order item to review. While that pattern exists in Laravel, it isn't what this project needs. Our reviews are linked directly to a product and a user, not through an order chain. Adding an order ID to the reviews table would mean changing the database schema unnecessarily. Since the database is already built and working, this change was deliberately skipped to keep things clean. The AI suggested adding an order ID column to the reviews table so that reviews could be traced back to a specific order, but the instructor made a deliberate decision not to do this. The core purpose of a review is to rate a product, not an order. Since the database schema was already finalized, making this change would require a new migration and could disrupt the existing data flow. This is an important lesson. When using AI-assisted coding, you need enough domain knowledge to evaluate and reject suggestions that don't fit your architecture. The review system needs to be surfaced on the product detail page. There are two things happening on that page. First, existing reviews for the product are displayed, showing the rating and comment from each user. Second, a form is provided so that a logged-in user who has purchased the product can submit their own review. Both of these pieces are wired up through the review controller functions we just set up. The product model gets two additions. The first is a standard Eloquent relationship function, reviews, which defines that a product has many reviews. The second is a helper function called average rating, which simply calculates the average rating across all reviews for that product. This helper isn't a relationship itself. It's a convenience method that makes it easy to display the average star rating on the product page without writing the calculation logic every time. After copying and pasting the generated code into the review controller, there are actually three functions, not just two. In addition to store and check, there's a getProductReviews function that retrieves all reviews associated with a specific product ID. All necessary imports are added at the top: the review model, the order model, and the request class. These three functions together cover the full review lifecycle: fetching, validating, and saving. The product controller's show function also needs to be updated. Previously, it just passed the product to the view. Now it also fetches the product's reviews, including the associated user data for each review, calculates the average rating, and checks whether the currently logged-in user has already submitted a review. All of this data is then passed to the product detail view so it can be rendered properly on the page. The review routes are set up with appropriate middleware. The store and check routes are protected by the auth middleware, meaning only authenticated users can submit or check reviews. The getProductReviews route, however, is public. Anyone visiting a product page can see the reviews without needing to be logged in. This is a standard pattern for review systems. Read is public, write is protected. The review system is designed to work live, meaning when a user submits a review, the page doesn't do a full reload. JavaScript on the front end sends the review data to the backend API using a fetch or AJAX call. The backend saves the review to the database and returns a JSON response. JavaScript then takes that response and dynamically updates the review list on the page. This is why the API returns JSON format. It's built specifically to be consumed by front-end JavaScript, not to render a full HTML page. Throughout the session, a lot of copy-paste was done, and that's fine for repetitive patterns like CRUD operations. But the instructor makes an important point. Directly copying and pasting code without reading it, especially when it involves database changes or model relationships, can introduce bugs that are hard to trace. The rule of thumb is read the code, understand what it does, and only then paste it. This is especially true when working with AI-generated code, which may suggest architecturally incorrect solutions. Let's be honest about where this project stands. The core concepts, product pages, authentication, orders, the admin dashboard, the review system, image uploads, and basic PDF generation have all been covered.
but the project is not production complete. Several things are intentionally left for students to implement on their own: user profile pages, delivery address management, dashboard charts, a number of missing pages, and proper image handling inside PDF exports. This is by design. The goal was to teach the patterns, not to hand over a finished product. One specific limitation worth understanding is image handling in PDF exports. When you generate a PDF using libraries like DOM-PDF, images that are dynamically loaded from the database, like product images stored as file paths, do not render inside the PDF. The image simply doesn't pass through. If you need images in a PDF, you have to use a different approach. Either embed the image as base64 encoded data, or use static image references. Dynamic image paths from the database will not work directly in PDF generation.
For the payment system in this project, there's no online payment gateway integration. Instead, the workflow is manual. The customer places an order, makes a payment through their bank or in cash, then uploads a photo of the payment receipt through a form on the front end. That image is saved either to the public folder on the server or as a file path in the database. It's the same image upload code that was already written earlier in the course. It's a simple but practical approach for projects that don't need full payment gateway integration.
So what should you do after completing this course? There are a few clear paths. If you want to stay in web development, Python with Django is a strong next step. It's a different ecosystem, but shares many of the same MVC concepts you've already learned. If you want to expand into mobile development, Flutter is worth learning. It lets you build for both mobile and web from a single codebase, though its web support is still maturing. And if you're ready to apply what you've learned, pursuing an internship is highly recommended. Real project experience is invaluable at this stage. The instructor has made it clear that support doesn't stop here. If there are topics you didn't fully understand, compile a list and send it via WhatsApp. The instructor will then schedule a Google Meet session to go through those topics, and the session will be recorded so you can refer back to it later. Certificates are being activated on the student portal. Check your account. Internship opportunities are also available for those who want hands-on experience. And if new questions come up as you keep building, additional sessions can be arranged. The learning continues beyond the formal class. So, continuing from where we left off, a common question that comes up is, if you're building a Flutter mobile app, what handles the backend? The answer is Laravel. You build your API in Laravel, document it in Postman, and then the Flutter app, or any front end for that matter, simply hits that API link. That's the entire flow. Backend builds the API, front end consumes it. Now let's look at exactly how a front end uses an API. There are really just two core steps. First, you hit the link, you make a request to the API endpoint URL. Second, if you're sending data, you include it in the request body, usually as JSON or form data. For post requests, you also need to send the CSRF token in the headers for security. The syntax might look different in React, Flutter, or vanilla JavaScript, but the underlying flow is always the same. Hit the link, send the data. That's it. Let's break down a post request a little more carefully. When you send a post request from the front end, two things go along with it. In the headers, you must include the CSRF token. This is a security mechanism that Laravel uses to verify the request is legitimate. Then in the body, you send your form data. Form data is simply a collection of key value pairs, the field names and their values from your form. The this keyword you might see in JavaScript refers to the component's own data properties. So the front end is packaging up form values and sending them securely to the backend API. Here's something really powerful. Many AI services also expose their functionality through APIs. So just like you hit your own Laravel API endpoint, you can hit an AI provider's endpoint and get AI capabilities directly inside your website. Some AI providers offer free API access, though many have started charging. The good news is you can ask an AI tool itself to help you find free API options. The integration process is identical. You hit a link, you get a response. That's how you embed AI features of chatbots or smart recommendations into your own web projects. Now let's talk about when to use which technology stack. Laravel is the go-to choice for most projects in Nepal. It comes with everything pre-configured: routing, authentication, database ORM, you just use it. For projects up to 2 or 3 lakh rupees in budget, Laravel handles it beautifully. The MERN stack, that's MongoDB, Express, React, and Node, is built from scratch. You install every component yourself. That means more control and potentially better performance at massive scale, but it's overkill for smaller projects. Imagine needing to clone Facebook or YouTube. That's the scale where MERN makes sense. For a 50,000 rupee project, setting up React, Node, and MongoDB separately is just unnecessarily tedious. So why does Laravel dominate in Nepal specifically? First, it's batteries included. You don't waste time configuring basics. Second, virtually every Nepali tech company the instructor knows uses Laravel for their internal projects. Third, it scales well for the typical project sizes seen in Nepal, from small business websites to mid-sized e-commerce platforms. You might notice it feels a bit slow on your local machine, and that's because it loads everything, whether you need it or not. But on a proper production server, Laravel's processing is genuinely fast. For data input and analysis projects too, Laravel handles it just fine.
Let's talk about hosting your projects. A cPanel hosting plan gives you a server environment where you can deploy HTML sites, PHP apps, Laravel projects, and WordPress, all in one place. You purchase the domain name separately from the hosting. A domain plus cPanel package typically runs around 4,000 to 5,000 rupees per year in Nepal. The instructor recommends a provider called Eval Technology, which is run by a colleague, the advantage being direct support when something goes wrong. One important clarification, cPanel is for web applications only. For mobile apps, you need a separate Google Play developer account, which has its own fees.
Here's something many people don't know. You can register a .com.np domain completely for free. And contrary to what some might think, it works globally, not just inside Nepal. You go to register.com.np, search for your desired domain name, and if it's available, you register it. You'll need to fill in your details according to your citizenship card and submit the required documents. Your application might get rejected if documents are incomplete, so be thorough. One citizenship allows one free registration. If you're registering for a business number and a stamped letter on company letterhead, the domain is managed by Mercantile, which operates under the Nepali government. Before wrapping up this section, there's a quick but important announcement about the internship program. Internship slots are currently opening up, and there's been a slight delay in processing because of ongoing preparations. Students can expect to receive their offer letters, or at minimum, an enrollment confirmation form on the 11th, so keep an eye out for that. It's not a long wait, just a few more days to get everything properly organized on the administrative side. So the process actually starts with a registration form, not just a letter. Once the form opens, you'll have roughly 2 days to fill it out, with the deadline falling somewhere around the 11th to the 13th. After the form closes, everyone who submitted it will receive an offer letter. Once you get the offer letter, your job is simple. Sign it and send it back. After that, the team adds you to a group. Inside that group, you'll receive a code of conduct document. This is important. You need to read through it carefully because it outlines all the rules and expectations you'll be following throughout the internship. And then you sign that too. Here's something really useful to know. The entire administrative process, from form submission to offer letter to code of conduct, takes about 1 week. That means if the form opens around the 11th, your internship officially starts around the 20th. That's almost 10 days where you're waiting. And the advice here is clear. Use that time to sharpen your skills and finish up any courses you're working through. Don't waste it. After that 1-week buffer, interns get divided into separate groups. The size of each group depends on how many people join the internship overall. For example, if 60 people sign up, they'd be split into smaller teams. Each team then needs to elect one team representative from among themselves. This is someone chosen by the group, not assigned by the organizers. In the very first week of the internship, each team has 2 main tasks. First, choose your project title. Second, prepare a documentation draft for that project. And don't worry, a format template will be provided. But here's the important part. You have to be able to defend your project idea. It needs to look and feel like a real, meaningful project. If the reviewers aren't convinced, they can ask you to go back and redo it. So take this seriously from day one. The internship is deliberately designed to push you. The goal isn't for you to stay at a normal, comfortable level. It's to get you to a genuinely high skill level. So expect to be challenged. That said, the time commitment is flexible. You don't need to work on it every single day. There are weekly tasks, and the team meets every Friday. If you want to do everything on Thursday in one sitting, that works too. The schedule is flexible, but you do need to show up and contribute. This is a really important point about teamwork. Tasks are divided among team members. Each person is responsible for a specific piece. If even one person doesn't do their part, the entire team suffers. At the Friday meeting, the team is supposed to show what they accomplished that week. If one member didn't contribute, the whole team has nothing to show. So it's not just about you. Your effort directly impacts your teammates. One technical skill you absolutely need for this internship is Git and GitHub. You don't need to be an expert, but you need to be comfortable with the basics. If you run into errors or get confused, don't worry. A support person will be added to the group specifically to help with these kinds of issues. If the main mentor can't respond in time, this support person will step in, so you won't be left stuck.
Here's an interesting observation about Laravel. It might not be the most hyped framework on YouTube or social media right now, but in actual companies, in real-world projects, it's everywhere. The mentor mentions that every company they've personally interacted with uses Laravel. The reason trending topics shift so often is that people teach what's popular because it generates views and income, not necessarily because it's what companies actually use. Laravel is a real-world, industry-relevant skill, and that's exactly why it's the focus of this internship. Life happens, and exams are a real concern. Here's how it's handled. If 1 or 2 people on your team have exams coming up, just let your team know ahead of time. They can cover your tasks for that week, and you can step back temporarily. But if the entire team has exams, you need to inform the organizers in advance, before the week starts, so no tasks are assigned that week. The key rule here is simple. Communicate early. Don't just go silent and disappear. That's the one thing that causes real problems. The communication expectation is really straightforward. If you're busy, say so. If you can't do much this week, say so. Even doing a small amount and letting your team know what's going on is completely acceptable. What's not acceptable is going completely silent, not replying to messages, and disappearing. That creates confusion and blocks the whole team. A quick message saying I'm tied up this week goes a long way. A common question: how many projects does a team build? The answer is 1. Every member of the team works on the same single project together. The emphasis is on quality. Build one project, but build it really well. One impressive, complete project is far more valuable than several half-finished ones. So the team's energy should be focused and unified around that one deliverable. What if you're not participating in this internship batch, but want to see what others built? It depends on whether the team decides to host their project publicly. If they do, you can view it. If not, you can reach out to the team directly and ask for the source code. Another option mentioned is to connect with someone who is doing an internship, even at another company, and ask for guidance, source code references, or documentation. Learning from others' work is always encouraged. To summarize the timeline, the form opens around the 11th, closes around the 13th, and after about a week of processing, the internship officially begins somewhere around the 15th to 20th. The full internship runs for roughly 2 to 3 months. The key takeaway here is that the gap before the official start date is valuable time. You can finish your current project, like the news portal, and be well prepared before the internship even begins. If you can't join this batch, don't worry, there will be a next one. The next batch is expected to open in roughly 2 months. The organizers will send out notifications when it does, so you won't miss it. The reason for the gap is that many current students have exams coming up, and it wouldn't be fair to run an internship during that period. So if exams are your concern right now, it's perfectly fine to wait for the next batch and join then. A student asked a great technical question. If you build a project in Laravel 9, how do you migrate it to Laravel 11 and take advantage of the new features? The honest answer is that upgrading between major versions is genuinely tricky. If your project is working fine on Laravel 9, the simplest advice is to just keep it running on that version. There's no problem with that. If you do want to upgrade, it requires careful migration steps and potentially refactoring parts of your code to work with the new structure. The recommendation is to only upgrade if you have a specific reason to do so. And finally, interns who successfully complete the program receive a certificate. The encouragement here is to share it on LinkedIn and add the relevant skills to your profile. This is genuinely important for your professional visibility. Completing an internship, building a real project, and having that documented on LinkedIn signals to employers that you have practical, hands-on experience, not just theoretical knowledge. So don't skip that step when you finish. Now, when it comes to updating your package versions, there's a really practical approach being discussed here. If you want to bring an older project up to date, you don't need to manually hunt through every dependency yourself. Instead, you can go into your composer.json file, copy the entire package list, and hand it over to an AI tool. You simply tell it, update all of these to their latest versions. The AI will figure out the appropriate version numbers and give you back an updated composer.json. Once you have that, you run the command composer update in your terminal, and your packages get updated accordingly. Importantly, your folder structure doesn't change at all. Only the dependency versions are being resolved and updated.
This brings up a very real and common challenge that developers face. What do you do when you have an existing source code project that was built on an older version of a framework or PHP, and you now need to run it in a modern environment? Or maybe you want to upgrade it to a newer version altogether? The discussion here acknowledges that this is a legitimate concern. The suggested approach is to use AI assistance to analyze your existing composer.json, understand what versions you're currently on, and then intelligently map those to their modern equivalents. It's not always a one-click process, but AI can significantly reduce the manual effort involved in figuring out compatibility. One important thing mentioned here is how to get personalized help when you're stuck. If you're working through an upgrade or any technical problem and you can't figure it out on your own, you're encouraged to send a message to the instructor. If the instructor has free time, for example the next day, they'll send you a Google Meet link and walk through the problem with you live. This is a really valuable resource. Don't hesitate to reach out when you're genuinely stuck, because a live session can often resolve in minutes what might take hours of solo debugging. Beyond one-on-one sessions, there's also a WhatsApp group where you can ask questions at any time. And this isn't just a temporary resource. The group stays active long-term. So even after the course sessions are done, you can continue posting questions, getting answers, and learning from others in the community. Similarly, the video recordings remain accessible, so you can rewatch any lecture whenever you need a refresher. These are tools designed to support your learning journey well beyond just the live sessions. Something worth highlighting from this session is the clarification about the internship program. It is completely free. There are no fees, no paid tiers, nothing to pay. The reason for this is straightforward. The project's primary goal is skill development, not generating income from participants. The idea is that by building real skills through this program, you create value for yourself. The income comes later, from the skills you've developed, not from charging students up front. So if you were wondering whether there's any cost involved, the answer is no. Focus on learning and building your capabilities. Finally, there's a practical note about continuing your education on this platform. When you're ready to take another course, you can apply for it through the same platform and the same account you're already using. Your learner ID stays active. It doesn't expire after one course. This means you don't need to go through a whole new registration process or create a new account somewhere else. The ecosystem is designed so that you can keep building on your skills course after course, all in one place. So think of this not as a one-time experience, but as the beginning of an ongoing learning journey. So let's talk about where you are right now in your learning journey. The instructor makes a really encouraging point here. Once you've reached a certain level, you don't need someone to handhold you through every single new thing. You've built enough of a foundation that you can start exploring on your own. New frameworks, new versions, new tools, you can pick those up yourself. And that's actually the goal of any good course. Not to teach you everything, but to teach you enough that you can figure out the rest. Build projects, experiment, break things, and fix them. That's how real learning happens. The instructor also touches on something very practical, why they haven't updated to the latest PHP version for the course. And the reason is straightforward. When you update one thing, like a framework or a language version, it can break your older projects. If you update CodeIgniter's version, for example, you'd need to go back and update everything that depends on it. So the instructor has made a deliberate choice to stick with a version that keeps things stable and compatible. And honestly, this is a real-world concern too. In professional environments, teams often stay on older versions for exactly this reason, stability over novelty. The good news is that differences between minor versions aren't dramatic, so what you learn here transfers directly. One of the most valuable things the instructor shares here is about the ongoing community that forms around these courses. Old students keep messaging, collaborating on projects, asking for code reviews, sharing new resources. The instructor's WhatsApp is literally full of messages from previous students. And that's not a burden. That's a sign of a healthy learning community. You're not just buying a course and disappearing. You're joining a network. And that network is genuinely useful. Whether you need a second pair of eyes on your code, want to collaborate on a project, or just need encouragement when you're stuck. The instructor goes further and explains that support isn't just reactive, it's proactive. If a student shares their project, the instructor is willing to look at it, trim out unnecessary parts, and even create a dedicated video explaining what needs to be updated and how. That's a level of personalized support that's genuinely rare. And it goes both ways. When the instructor taught API concepts to a new class, they looped in the old students too. So if you're a previous student and something new comes up in a later batch, you're not left behind. That knowledge gets shared with you as well. The instructor also makes a lighthearted but genuine request. If you found the course valuable, go leave a review on CodeIgniter. Search it up, find the page, and drop a rating. It helps the platform, it helps other students find good resources, and it supports the instructor's work. There's even a funny moment where someone apparently left a 1-star rating with the text, "Thank you, CodeIgniter," which, well, is not quite the support the instructor was hoping for. But the point stands. If this course helped you, a positive review goes a long way. Now, here's a really important piece of advice for anyone thinking about internships. The instructor is clear. Your coding skill level is not the only thing that determines whether you're ready for an internship. Yes, ideally, you'd have strong technical skills, but if you can give time and you're willing to learn on the job, the instructor actually recommends joining anyway. Why? Because internships are not just about writing code. There are so many other things that matter, and we'll get to those in a moment. The key question is, can you commit time to it? If yes, go for it, even if your coding isn't perfect yet. This is a really eye-opening point. The instructor walks through the final project from the course and points out almost everything was copy-paste. The coding skill required was minimal. What actually mattered was the ability to debug, to research, to document, and to work as a team. In a real internship, if you're in a team of 6 people, not all 6 are writing code at the same time. Some people handle documentation, some do research, some manage task distribution. These are real, valued contributions. So don't disqualify yourself from an internship just because you feel your coding isn't strong enough yet. Let's break down those soft skills the instructor mentions because they deserve more attention. Documentation, being able to write clear, organized records of what your project does and how it works, is something many developers undervalue, but employers love. Research skills mean you can find answers independently, understand new requirements, and adapt. Communication means you can explain your work to non-technical people and collaborate effectively. Teamwork and task management round it all out. These are the skills that make you a professional, not just a programmer. And the great news is, you can develop all of these, even while your coding is still growing. So here's where we land. The instructor's message throughout this final section is genuinely encouraging. You've learned enough to keep going on your own. Version differences, new tools, new frameworks, you can handle those. Stay connected with your community because those relationships are valuable long after the course ends. Work on your soft skills, documentation, research, communication, because those are what make you hireable and effective on a real team. And if an internship opportunity comes your way, don't let imperfect coding skills stop you. If you can give the time, join. Skill grows on the job. The best thing you can do now is start. Build, explore, collaborate, and keep moving forward.